You're live.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum all. Inshallah, this is the fourth week of our panel discussion on ninth word, the times of the salats. So as we know, Salat Imaduddin, all around the Risale, Ustad is going extensively on each step of the Salat and explains it and tries to open up the meaning for us. So inshallah, in this one, also we are trying to understand how an extensive way of worshipping is Salat and how it is related to the whole universe and how it is representing the worship of the whole being. We discussed the first 4 points so far. Inshallah, we'll try to focus on the fifth point today. Colin Hocam from Durham, England is with us. Also, Harun Abi is here this week. And inshallah, I will try to assist you in our reading. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون. So glorify Allah when you reach evening and when you rise in the morning, for all praise is His in the heavens and on earth, and towards the end of the day, and when you have reached noon. Inshallah, I'm starting with the fifth point again, unless Abis have any reminders before we start for us. Bismillah. Fifth point. By nature, man is extremely weak, yet everything touches him and saddens and grieves him. Also, he is utterly lacking in power, yet the calamities and enemies that afflict him are extremely numerous. Also, he is extremely wanting, yet his needs are indeed many. Also, he is lazy and incapable, yet life's responsibilities are most burdensome. Also, his humanity has connected him to the rest of the universe. Yet, the decline and disappearance of things he loves, and with which he is familiar, continually pains him. Also, his reason shows him exalted aims and lasting fruits, yet his hand is short, his life brief, his power slight, and his patience little. Let me read this part again. By nature, man is extremely weak, yet everything touches him and saddens and grieves him. Also, he is utterly lacking in power, yet the calamities and enemies that afflict him are extremely numerous. Also, he is extremely wanting, yet his needs are indeed many. Also, he is lazy and incapable, yet life's responsibilities are most burdensome. Also, his humanity has connected him to the rest of the universe, yet the decline and disappearance of the things he loves, with which he is familiar, continually pains him. Also, his reason shows him exalted aims and lasting fruits, yet his hand is short, his life brief, his power slight, and his patience little. It can be clearly understood from this how essential it is for a spirit in this state, the time of Fajr, in the early morning, to have recourse to and present a petition at the court of an all-powerful one of glory, an all-compassionate, all-beauteous one through prayer and supplication, to seek success and help from him, and what a necessary source of support it is, so that he can face the things that will happen to him in the coming day and bear the duties that will loaded on him. Before going on, I just want to ask a question, which kind of busies my mind. We had a group that, there's some church attendees, some Christians are coming to our place, and we read some parts from Risale. And a few weeks ago, I shared this part with them, trying to emphasize the how fundamental is the prayers as they observe it. We do it 5 times a day for us. And while reading this part, one of the guys just commented that, oh, I wish it ends. I wish it's enough, So this first paragraph, man is extremely weak. Everything touches him, saddens and grieves him. His other lacking in power, yet the calamities, enemies afflict him extremely numerous. He couldn't take this part, kind of. So at that point, it was little surprising to me. But then later on, I little bit think of that. We are not that different, It's kind of our nafs doesn't want to hear this reality. It doesn't just want to accept this this truth. It is, nobody can deny it. You can read it with an atheist or a Christian or whoever. So this is the fact, this is the reality of the human being, but we don't want to accept it. Why do you think, Colin Hocam or Harun abi, any reflection on this? Why is our denial or lack of admittance on this part? That just came to my mind. I don't know if
I think there's a paradox.
My question was clear, or I'm not sure.
I think your question was clear. Unless Harun wants to jump in. There's a paradox here, isn't there? Because when you see a small baby who's just a few days old, this is what Ustad is saying here is in extremis, a baby is totally ajiz and faqir, and yet totally trusting. And we are the same, just because we are grown up, it doesn't mean that we've actually now we've become stronger and more knowledgeable and wiser and more powerful. We haven't. We are still as ajiz and faqir as the baby. But what we have is the illusion of power. We think the power is ours. The baby knows that it doesn't have any power, and it gives itself totally. It submits itself totally. It's not anxious. It's not depressed. It doesn't worry. But it knows that it is ajiz and faqir, and it knows that in order to have those needs fulfilled, all it has to do is cry. In other words, make dua, as a baby makes dua, which is through crying. And we have to also entreat Allah. We have to cry as well, in a sense. We have to plead and we have to make dua. But our paradox is, as we grow, we start to fall. Adam alayhi salam fell, and we fall. We fall into the illusion that the names and the attributes that we find within our makeup are actually ours. And so it's not a surprise that your Christian friend couldn't tolerate this paragraph, because it's telling us the truth about ourselves. And the nafs in the Ammara position doesn't like the truth.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's an excellent introduction, Khalil Hocam. Assalamualaikum, everyone. I was thinking of course, I think the states of people asking questions are quite different. Like we can be in very different moods to deny or to accept a truth. So really, I'm not sure in what type of mood this was questioned. But what immediately comes to my mind, apart from what Colin Hocam beautifully conveyed to us, you know, there's a part in Risale-i Nur where someone asks Ustad Said Nursi, like 5 times prayers a day, it's a burden. And, you know, I mean, my patience is not enough when I think of it, and it's going to repeat all my life. So that's too much burden on me. So that's the question. And Said Nursi at that point says that actually I questioned myself. I heard this similar answer from my soul, from my nafs. So there is this part, this fact. So we have many faculties, including our soul. So a part of us actually is disobedient. Just a part of me does not want to obey, that does not want to submit, like the baby example. Although, you know, with my body language, I'm really crying. I love that analogy. Definitely spiritually, even bodily, I'm crying, you know, even if I don't admit. So, however, my nafs does not accept that in the first place, because my nafs, my soul, kind of challenges God, right? That's the fact. Like it just says that, you know, here is my existence, here is your existence. So in this challenge, or in this war, you know, there will be always a contradiction between the truth that I read, that I see, and how my nafs reacts to this truth. So I think that's a fact. It's going to happen. So it's like a noise, background noise. It happens with everything, right? So nafs will be always background noise. And knowing this fact helps a little bit, but actually in practice, I mean, I think it's okay to feel that, you know, although this is the truth, I'm not feeling this wholly, or some part of me is reacting to this truth. I think that should be totally perfect. I wouldn't say this is a negligence or this is a heedlessness. I would not judge on this, you know, for this fact.
So maybe the following paragraph is the answer. We don't know our point of support, or haven't sometimes difficult to connect. That's why, I guess. Otherwise, you were talking about his mood. You know, he wasn't denying this. He was well aware of these are all facts, right? And he was kind of, oh, this is too much, kind of, or you know, I wish it wasn't like that kind of mood, you know. So, but there's no doubt about the fact, you know, he couldn't deny it. And actually, we didn't really discuss on this, you know, his moods. We just continue reading, and he was completely all set with the following part. But maybe, you know, Ustad talks about our ghafla, our heedlessness, and maybe, as Colin Hocam, you know, very nicely put it, this working on our ana, right? It takes time again to make the connection again and again, and but finding our support. These are very, very strong drives, actually, to find a solution for those things, right? We just want to get rid of these things, or just want to find a cure for them on the way to, of course, eventually, you know, leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But unless we find that cure, we find that existence, it's a very strong drive. It's an extremely I don't know, in a way, bothering situation, you know, that a human soul can never, you know, be able to carry. in a way, I believe.
Could I just add something?
I love the contrast here put in the table, like Nursi is contrasting how is our nature, how we want, how we expect, but what we have, the contrast between what we wish for and what is happening is amazing here to me.
Hocam, you're saying something.
Sorry, I'm thinking about the way that Ustad phrases this. If we think back to the story of Iblis in paradise with Adam alayhi salam, he tricked Adam into thinking that he could have eternity. In fact, we had been promised eternity. You know, the Shajarat al-Khuld, the tree of eternity. Iblis said, you can become immortal on your terms. And this is what Adam was tricked by. And in this life, you know, especially with the scientific revolution and with, you know, the evolution, issue of evolution, survival of the fittest, all of these things added together, we are taught that we can do things autonomously and that we actually have power, and that the more power we have, the better it is. And you realize that worldly politics is all power politics. It's all about power, and might is right. If you look at all of the big movements, you know, political movements in world history, all of the empire building, it's all based on the idea of might is right. And this bleeds into everyday social life as well. We're told, you know, from when we're very young, that yes, you have to develop your talents and your skills. And we have to be very careful, because clearly we do have to develop certain things. But we have to develop our iman and our submission and our knowledge that what we're given is not ours. And the attributes and names that we find, you know, we seem to find them in ourselves. And because, you know, if there's no connection with the Creator, then the assumption is that these attributes are ours and we can work on them. And so when you read something like, you know, by nature man is extremely weak, well, actually, I can write a symphony, you know, I can go up in a spaceship, I can conquer a mountain. I'm not weak. We're not lacking in power, it seems. We can do so many things. I'm not that wanting, you know, I can build a castle and I can live in it quite happily and have everything I need. So on the surface of it, what Ustad is saying is counterintuitive. If you've been brought up in a secular society, as we all have, and if you've been taught from a very early age that we have existential autonomy and also bodily autonomy, and, you know, my body is mine to do with what I want, I am my own creation. So it's quite understandable that if you read this on the surface, you would think, well, what is this man saying? You know? But it's because we actually think that what we have is ours, you know, but we don't have anything. You know, what we think we have is reflected. It's a necessary fiction. We have to believe that we own it, you know, because otherwise, how can we submit it? How can we give it back? But it's a double-edged sword, and this double-edged sword usually ends up in you know, injuring us, unfortunately.
Ustad mentions that, right? It is in our futra. The nafs doesn't want to listen his Lord. It's just, it's in the futra of nafs. So, yes, we believe in Allah. Yes, we are Muslims, but it's still there. It is just doesn't want to listen. I don't know how we can handle it or how we can understand that, but part of the exam, or I don't know, necessary for our understanding ourselves and trying to understand our Rabb, but it's there. It doesn't want to admit. It doesn't want to accept an authority over himself. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. Inshallah, I want to continue to. There's one reflection. Let me read the chat part. It's also Allah's mercy that we are under some kind of anesthesia which fluctuates to allow us to be able to live despite such weakness and impotence. Highly spiritual people live with denser calamities with less anesthesia, which make them sense more of Salat. Let's see. This very interesting comment. I don't know if others want to reflect on this, but it just reminded me yesterday we were reading with another group. A brother mentioned excess of from a Sahaba. So they had to amputate his leg. So they offered him to drink something. So, he will be a little numb for the, great pain. But he rejected, and he eventually offered them, okay, I'm going to start praying, and so you can do whatever you want. So after he started prayer, they just, did the surgery without an issue. So I don't know, maybe as he said, he put it that anesthesia, yes, in a way, when we don't want to admit the reality, and we just need to use that painkillers, in a way. That was my understanding. I don't know.
It's a great point that Bilen makes, actually, and I'm not surprised that he would make a point like that. The anesthesia that we need is because, look, if you're an unbeliever, let's go to the extreme and say, if you're an unbeliever, you've got how many years on this earth? And at the end of it, there is a hole in the ground, 1 meter by 2 meters. And I've spoken to people who have no belief, who've been to funerals. And this is why I think that now in the West, people are not buried anymore. Usually they are cremated, because they cannot countenance the prospect of being their body being put into the ground. Even, of course, if you're dead, then you're dead. But I think what they want is, our body should be burned so there's not even a single speck left, because it's a terrifying idea. It's a terrifying thought that, you're spending 60, 70, 80 years on Earth, and at the end, there is a 1 meter by 2 meter hole in the ground, and that's you finished. And Ustad, there is a brilliant passage, and I can't remember where it's from. Someone will remind us surely, where he says, what kind of civilizational greatness can remedy this realization that at the end of life there is this just hole in the ground? He says it much more beautifully than I can, recall it. But this, it must be terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And that this is why anesthesia is needed. This is why life has to be constant amusement and distraction and diversion. People need to be constantly entertained with trivia and not to think, and this is why attention spans today are very, very brief. This is why we have the TikTok generation, with a 2-minute video, and that's about as much as they can stand. Then they want something new. Because if it's too long, they start thinking. And when you start thinking, that's it. It's torture. So everything has to be new, novelty all the time, constant diversion, constant entertainment. We are being entertained to death, actually, because otherwise the anesthetic starts to wear, it starts to wear off. And Bilen made a great point. Those who are spiritually more advanced, they don't have much anesthetic, and therefore they make more dua. And it's a very, very good point.
Thank you. Inshallah, I'm going to continue the Fajr time. Can be clearly understood from this how essential it is for a spirit in this state at the time of Fajr, in the early morning, to have a recourse to and present a petition at the court of an all-powerful one of glory, Qadir Jalal, an all-compassionate, all-beauteous one, through prayer and supplication to seek success and help from him. And what a necessary source of support it is, so that he can face the things that will happen to him in the coming day and bear the duties that will be loaded on him. So this was the Fajr time. This is just the beginning of the day, and Ustad mentions here a couple of Asma'i Husna, names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He's all powerful and all compassionate. So they're all answering these two main wounds of the human being, right? The ajz and faqr in many ways. So we have a lot of things that we need to seek for, and it's just a lot of duties put upon us. That's the necessary strength, maybe only point of support that we don't want to admit. Let me continue, inshallah, if Abis don't want to add anything at this point.
I wanted to ask Harun a question.
Sure.
If that's okay, and see whether he agrees, because I'm not sure whether I'm reading this correctly. I think this is a miraculous treatise, the ninth word. Fajr is the beginning. It's all about beginnings. Allah is Fattah. It's all about the beginnings and openings. And the way I'm reading this is that a child, a newly born child, is a kind of epitome of Fajr, in a sense, because it is at its very weakest. And also when we are, in a sense, resurrected in the morning, when we are, awakened from our sleep, we are in a state of, at the beginning anyway, sometimes you wake up, you don't realize where you are, what's happening, you're still a bit confused, and you're still feeling a little bit groggy, a little bit weak from sleep. It's it's a childlike kind of situation. Yeah, thank you. You're showing us what Fajr is there. It's spring. Fajr is spring. It's the moment of conception. It's a child, a newborn child. And I'm thinking, is there a systems analysis analogy that can be drawn, or am I thinking totally wrongly on this?
Yes, Colin Hocam, I think you remember our discussions. Yes, absolutely. I think from systems perspective or holistic perspective, actually the most investment would be made at the very early stage. I mean, if you know production, or if you know constructing a system, any system, healthcare system, let's say airplane system, so any system that we can think of, the earliest time is the time that we need to make the most investments. So it's not just time of money, it's also it's the investments, thought investments. Like we need to clearly think what's going to happen over the course of the time. Like if it's a healthcare system, how long it is going to sustain, let's say 50 years. And we need to plan thoughtful, have thought plan in place. Like in 50 years, how many hospitals we're going to have, how many doctors we're going to rent, how many, pipelines we're going to just establish to send blood samples, this and to any details that you can think of. Also, you need to consider how are you going to dispose this healthcare system at the end of 50 years. So that's provenly the best way, most efficient way to build a system. We need to think all details from the beginning or at the beginning, the same meaning. So here, obviously, the same thing, like the Fajr, we are so in need of thinking of today, like let's take it as one day instead of 50 years. So I need to have a concrete plan of the day, and obviously I need to do some tasks. And these tasks need to evolve, in a better way. And Ustad's pick of the Esma here is excellent. Like it's talking about Kadir Zülcelal. So since we are doing macro planning, right, from the beginning, it requires a lot of power. It requires a lot of overthinking in a way. So it's Kadir Zülcelal, the Esma-il Husna. And I need to develop all the tasks. So it needs to evolve. It needs to get better and better. That's with Kemal, And of course, we need to do, things in the best way. That's Cemal. So it should look beautiful, whatever we do, whatever system we construct or plan to construct. So yeah, Colin Hocam, I think you're absolutely right. And I can see how systems thinking is working here as well.
I think since you've been enlightening us with the systems information, it's really put a completely new perspective on everything. I think this is the Allah's, we say hada min fadl Rabbi, this is from Allah's grace. Also, the grace of Jama'ah is everyone brings a gift to the table, It's like, at Eid, when we go to Eid, everyone brings the food that they've cooked from their own tradition, from their own maybe ethnic tradition or national dish or something that you haven't seen before or tasted before in that way. And suddenly your whole taste is enriched. And I think that everyone bringing a different intellectual and emotional perspective, this is the grace and the strength of these meetings of Jama, praying by yourself, okay, is fine, but to pray in Jama is, 17 or 70 or however many times more meritorious. And I think the same goes for these gatherings.
Absolutely, yeah, different perspectives. Yeah.
Colin Hocam also reminded the baby, right? In terms of system, I guess there's no more complicated system than a human being, I guess, in the universe. It's the most complicated system by itself, by himself. So the start in the morning, right? It's very, for a baby, it's always, sometimes, the baby just jumps to explore, but when he, considers something, it's always hard to start something. It's kind of in the beginning have the fear of, strange things, new things, and just maybe in the morning, this is our mood. We're kind of jumping into a completely new world. So that's, yes, we observed it before, but now we don't know what's gonna be, facing us in the new day. So yeah, thank you so much. It was very helpful in a way that we need to join all this, combine all these different aspects of the human being, and altogether society and ourselves as a human being, and beginning our lives. We start as a baby, but every day it's kind of the same adventure. Sometimes we have a set up system, like our cars, for example. We just run the ignition right in the morning, but it might not be running because of some problem in the system. So it's always Colin Hocam defined it as holistic, I guess, holistic system, right? So thank you so much.
And also, I want to bring to table, I was fascinated to see the verse Said Nursi takes at the beginning of this treatise is from Surat-al-Rum. And the next treatise is Resurrection. And it is from Surat-al-Rum as well. So I think he also considers this prayer topic so holistically, to say. So this prayer becomes like a system to take our worldly lives into resurrection. So prayer is a system that just takes every duties that we are encountering every day, and it is just, harmonizing, transforming in a way to resurrect us. And it is no coincidence that we see in this fifth sign, actually, I think it is the most dense sign compared to other ones, as if we are prepared to understand the fifth sign, reading through 1 to 4. So he's so condensed that we understand we are not fit in this world, and that's our condition, ontological condition. And we are in need of prayers. Once we are enlightened at that level, we love prayers and we are in need of them. We are more needing prayer than the air, we are intaking. It comes to that level, and it connects us to the resurrection, which is just the next Risale. So today, actually, I noticed they're coming from the same chapter of the Quran.
Yes. Thank you, Harun abi. Inshallah, I will go to Dhuhr, continue if
Sorry, before you do that, I think there was another message in the chat.
Reflections. Fajr time resembles coming into existence, which is open to any kind of starting, choices, burdens, and results. So prayer of Fajr is like kind of a game changer. Also, it is a thanksgiving for his bestowal us of existence. It is even a thank for having the opportunity to have slept and woken up. Thank you. That's a great summary of the issue. The time of Zuhr. Just past midday is the time of the day's zenith and the start of its decline, the time when daily labors approach their completion, the time of a short rest from the pressures of work, when the spirit needs a pause from the heedlessness and insensibility caused by toil, and a time divine bounties are manifested. Time of Dhuhr, just past midday, is the time of the day's zenith and the start of its decline, the time when daily labors approach their completion, the time of a short rest from the pressures of work, when the spirit needs a pause from the heedlessness and insensibility caused by toil, and a time divine bounties are manifested. Anyone may understand then how fine and agreeable, how necessary and appropriate it is for the human spirit to perform the midday prayer, which means to be released from the pressure, shake off the heedlessness, ghafla, and leave behind those meaningless, transient things, and clasping one's hands at the cord of the true bestower of bounties, Razzaq Hakiki, the eternally self-subsistent one, to offer praise and thanks for all his gifts, and seek help from him, and bowing to display one's impotence before his glory and tremendousness, and to prostrate and proclaim one's wonder, love, and humility. The person who does not understand this is not a true human being. Let me repeat it. Anyone may understand then how fine and agreeable, how necessary and appropriate it is for the human spirit to perform the midday prayer, which means to be released from the pressure, shake off the heedlessness, and leave behind those meaningless, transient things, and clasping one's hands at the cord of the true bestower of bounties, the eternally self-subsistent one, Qayyum Baqi, to offer praise and thanks for all his gifts, and seek help from him, and bowing to display one's impotence before his glory and tremendousness, and to prostrate and proclaim one's wonder, love, and humility. The person who does not understand this is not a true human being. So, well, sometimes, I don't know, it's really, you know, say something over some parts. It's kind of put so beautifully. I can read it again and repeat it, you know, keep reading again and again, but I don't know, please, Abis, help me, you know, I don't know where to start, but this is just who we are, and, you know, how things goes, you know, it's the way it is.
You know, this ninth word, I find it nearly miraculous in its concision, in how it puts the truths in such a wonderful way, and it allows us to make connections. You know, as we've said before, you know, a whole year can be mapped onto a whole life, and that can be mapped onto a whole day. It becomes like the hologram that Harun was talking about. You know, everything is reflected in everything else, and it's experiential. And every time we read it, a new veils are lifted from its truths. I think maybe one of his finest, the word shahkar, I can't think of the English word. It's Persian word, shahkar. The most beautiful thing the most wonderful thing that you accomplish is a shahkar. Sorry, I can't think of, there's not a suitable English word to express it. I would say it's one of his finest moments, this treatise, because it's both, it's poetic, it's lyrical, it's beautifully written in the Ottoman, and not so much in the English translation, but
yeah, I think there is a word Shukran Wahide uses in this treatise, but it didn't come to my mind. I need to check.
Right.
But it's like in cinematography, they say catharsis, I think, the catharsis moment, like it's the peak.
Right. Yes, yes. It's a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece of theology, really. But Ustad's theology is theology of the divine names. You know, it's pure theology. You know, theologos, talking about Allah. All you can do is talk about his names and how they are relevant to us in all of our life situations, in all of our life times. You know, in the morning of our life, in the in the Zohar of our life, in the Asr of our life, in the Maghrib of our life. This is just an amazing piece of what they used to call in English natural theology. I don't like the term natural, but it's theology from experience of the world, of the self, of social life. And he's fitted this into Salat. You know, as you said, Baikar, you know, the Imad of our deen is the Salat. And it's also the Imad of life. They are the poles around which everything revolves. You know, from Salat to Salat, we are dipped back into negligence and giving us an opportunity to realize our negligence and
Thank
to
you
come
for
out of it again.
religion is not deen is not translated as religion in English, right? They sometimes translate it as the way of life. And Salat
Yeah, I don't like way of life either,
yeah.
and nor religion either. But
Yeah.
deen, we know what deen is. Sometimes no language apart from pure Quranic language is adequate. I think you should ask Harun because I can't really articulate it. It's just this treatise is just, I find it crazy in a sense that there's no end to it, actually.
Yeah, by the way, I found the word. It is zenith, at the beginning.
Oh,
Zenith.
yes. Yeah, this is the zenith of Ostad's theological writing. Thank you, Harun.
Actually, it is here, I think, in this treatise.
It's here, yeah, we read it before, but I was thinking Shahkar is different. And I think masterpiece, maybe. Shahkar is like masterpiece.
Before, inshallah, further reflection, I want to go to the time of Asr. As for the time of Asr in the afternoon, it calls to mind the melancholy season of fall and the mournful state of old age and the sober period at the end of the time. It's also when the matters of the day reach their conclusion and at times such divine bounties as have been received that day, like health, well-being, and beneficial duties have accumulated to form a great total, and the time that proclaims through the mighty sun, hinting by starting to sing that man is a guest official and that everything is transient and inconstant. Now, the human spirit desires eternity and was created for it. It worships benevolence and is pained by separation. Thus, anyone who is truly human may understand what an exalted duty, what an appropriate service, what a fitting way to repay a debt of human nature. Indeed, what an agreeable pleasure it is to perform the afternoon prayers. For by offering supplications at the eternal court of the everlasting eternal one, the eternally self-subsistent one, it has the meaning of taking refuge in the grace of unending, infinite mercy, and by offering thanks and praise in the face of innumerable bounties, of humbly bowing before the mightiness of his lordship, and by prostrating in utter humility before the everlastingness of his Godhead, of finding true consolation of heart and ease of spirit, and being girded ready for worship in the presence of his grandeur. One approach I really love about this treatise is, most of the time when we worship, we just talk about how much we owe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how much we have to thank him, how much we have to praise him. And, in the time of Salat, he calls us how dear we are, not to go there, as if, Allah needs us, or as if we don't, respond, we are gonna hurt him in a way or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I couldn't define it properly. I use excessive words, but it's kind of this kind of approach to me, most of the time. But here, Ustad just puts it on the table. It is me. I need this. I am for this. Without this, I'm nothing. I can't go anywhere. I can't move. I can't even exist. This is my source of existence. This is my source of meaning. This is my source of living. It is who am I? Who I am. That is a very eye-opening, day-shifting, life-shifting approach to me. I don't know if Abiz wants to step in about any part on the Asr or Zuhur part.
Harun can step in, and you said that beautifully, Bakar. I mean, nothing to add from me.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, Baykar Abi, I think this is just telling us, or we clearly see after reading that and understanding this piece, this part particularly, it's kind of, how to say, it's a mirror. Prayers are like mirror to our existence. So how I feel, how I'm equipped with all my importance, weakness, I see this on the mirror of the prayers, because all the prayers, just it's a manifestation from my very existential part, that I absolutely have nothing. I'm in need of everything. It's a perfect, how to say, even it resembles, to these days, in modern days, smartphones have mindfulness apps, many apps that just triggers people to stop and think, mindfully, meditate. So giving different names, but it is the fact that, through this prayer mirrors, we are just manifesting, just submitting our, having nothing and nothingness in a way. And that's the best relief, this is fatra, this is creation. Nobody can deny. So even the moderns, right? When you meditate, you forget about anything, because we need to forget about anything. And the best way, of course, is through these prayers. And we learn this from prophets, everything connected to each other. But the regardless ultimate fact, again, is that we see ourselves, through prayers. When I pray, I see myself. And that's the duty, that's the exalted duty on me, and that's my deal, that's the deal I need to pay, obviously, and also that's joyful, done properly, let's say.
Thank you, Harun abi. In regard to exist, yes, somebody says something.
No, I was just going to say very, very quickly.
Yeah.
This needs to be discussed again, because this melancholy that he talks about, there is a huzn, that comes with us. There's a very sweet huzn, because that most of your life is gone, and that brings about a huzn. It brings about thankfulness for everything that you've experienced in your life, but it also it's bittersweet. It's bitter because you've lost, but it's sweet because you know what's around the corner, because you know that you're going to die, and it could be very soon. Statistically, if you're a certain age, it's going to be sooner rather than later. And then that's another adventure, It's a big adventure. Death is a big adventure for us as believers. And that's how we should see it, I think.
Very little time, but I was going to ask the same thing, exactly the same thing. You start both in Dhuhr time and Asr time mentioned related names, Qayyum Baqi, and then Qayyum Sarmadi, and Qadim Baqi. So all is related to this state of melancholy, you know, this our pain of continuation of this existence, you know. We came to existence, but we want to keep it. We want to, you know, keep holding to it. So it, I don't know how come we can, you know, attach these two things, our melancholy and how it becomes a cure all of a sudden, you know, his existence, his, you know, being eternal, his being baqi is just our cure, you know.
Can you tell us what the original word was for melancholy? It huzn.
Hüzün maybe.
Yeah, it's the same root, mahzunan, haleti mahzunane.
Because Ustad has two understandings of huzn. One is a selfish, orphan-like state, you know, where we weep and we become despairing. But there is also a very positive melancholy, which, you know, we are saddened, and that should take us to the mihrab, you know. It should take us to the prayer. That bittersweet sadness. It's not a bitter sadness, it's bittersweet. So it's complete. The first kind of sadness is the sadness that people in Yas feel. You know, they despair, they have no way out. He says it's like an orphan-like sadness because you have no owner, you have no Rab. But we're not orphans, alhamdulillah. I mean, we all begin as orphans, but we're not, because Allah finds us and takes us and, you know, enfolds us in his rububiyyah.
Yes, this is the I believe in it's mentioned in 25th word and in a couple of other parts that comparing this modern age entertainments and, you know, Quranic teachings.
Yes, absolutely, you're right. Literature of civilization.
Yes,
and Quran are compared, and one of the most, again, one of the most amazing of Ustad's writings.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Guest official.
There's another chat message. Yeah.
Okay. Let me read it really quick. Apart from Ustad's describing the features and meanings of prayers like shaking off heedlessness, live in the transient, etc., he also subtly offers and guides us to this level of prayers. There is a Jalali manifestation in last sentence of paragraph Dhuhr for people whoever does not understand the importance of Dhuhr time, for maybe not showing thankfulness for such accumulation of bounties. Yes.
Mustafa Polat just posted a very nice piece about this hüzn.
So it was the part, I guess, Colin Hocam mentioned. He sent the Turkish original text. Kur'an'ın edebi ise öyle bir hüznü verir ki aşikane hüzündür. Hüzün with love.
See, that's perfect. It's ashakane, you know. This it's a lovely huzn, you know, because it's bittersweet. It's not yetimane.
Yetimane, not like
Perfectly described, you know, two kinds of huzn. And this is, you know, that there is a sacred huzn and there is a profane huzn. The sacred huzn is this one, the ashakana huzn, you know, and the profane one, which we need to avoid, is the huzn that you see in today's films, today's literature, today's music
Yes.
in the West. It's full of this yetimane huzn, and this is
So
Shaitan's way of trying to take us to hell with him, basically.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we have to be aware of it.
So it comes from the longing of the beloved or ahbab, but not lacking the ahbab, friends.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, looks like the first one is triggering us to feel that we are going to come together again, and we are wishful at this point. But the other one is we conclude that it is gone, you know, and it's not going to exist again. So it is annihilated.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfectly put.
Again, it was so fast. We're at the end of the time. Do we have any closing remarks, Harun abi, Kulin abi?
Thank you. Yeah, it went really fast.
Yeah, it went too fast. You know, it got from Fajr to Aisha very, very quickly. You know, from spring to winter in 1 hour. It went too quickly. Nebi has put Rabbani Huzn and Yatimani Huzn in the chat, which is again saying the same thing.
Thank you for joining us. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Keep us in your prayers. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.